Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who is passionate about helping sports organizations harness the power of AI and machine learning to gain a competitive edge, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. I'm Sean Callanan, and welcome to episode 383 of Sports Geek. This week, I catch up with Charlotte Offord. She's the General Manager for the NFL in Australia and New Zealand. And yes, I am diving headfirst into AI tools and processes. Please email me, Sean, at sportsgeekhq.com if you'd like some insights or some help with your AI strategy. Remember, all the episodes are available at sportsgeekhq.com. For those of you who have left a review on Apple Podcasts, I really do appreciate it. Over 100 reviews there. You can leave that at sportsgeekhq.com/Apple. You'll find it there, find it on the Apple Podcast. And as always, you can always follow and stalk Sports Geek across LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram. And always you can catch me at Sean Callanan on most social channels. Please enjoy my chat with the NFL's General Manager of Australia and New Zealand, Charlotte Offord. Very happy to welcome Charlotte Offord. She's the General Manager of NFL Australia and New Zealand. Charlotte, welcome to the podcast.
Sean, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a lot as well. It is not, we do work together on certain things, but we want to get stuck into the interview. I always ask, and start off my interviews by asking people how they got their start in the world of sports. What about yourself? How did you get your start in the world of sports?
Yeah, so my start into the sporting world, it didn't start with sport. I didn't go straight into a sporting role. I was actually in a ticketing role in the kind of marketing space. So post-university, I got a job with Ticketmaster in Auckland, New Zealand, and very much was focused around the marketing of any major event that was come to New Zealand and was sold by Ticketmaster. So that could have been anything from like music concerts right through to rugby games to family events and festivals, etc. So very much started off on a much wider entertainment space. After a couple of years there, I wanted to get some overseas experience. I felt that whilst New Zealand had a lot to offer and had given me a huge, really good starting base to really understand the entertainment world, I knew there was a lot more out there. So I booked myself a one-way ticket to the United Kingdom, to London, and worked on how can I find a role within the UK that was going to allow me to use the experience I had at Ticketmaster and had built, but kind of start to really look at how do I go into something that's more just like more narrow than maybe kind of the wider network. So
it's pretty common for Aussies and Kiwis to head across to London to find a job, and ticketing is I think 30-40% of revenue that comes into sport is ticketing. So it's a great grounding there to get it from multiple industries. You got a role at Ticketmaster UK. What was some of the differences when you went looking back at coming from the New Zealand market to the UK market?
Yeah, I think the massive difference is just the volume of events that was existing in the market, and also probably just how big an on sale can be. So, you go from a smaller based event with 20,000 people probably at the peak, right up to being in the UK where a Coldplay residence tour at Wembley Stadium sells out in minutes. So, kind of went from a very different base of volume. But I think through that role, what it allowed me to do was really narrow into sport specifically. So I went into a role as marketing manager of sport. And I think, again, the volume of sports existing in the market on a regular basis. So under my remit, I actually shared the role with someone else. So we kind of halved the sports landscape, which really tells you that the sports landscape is pretty big. I looked after things like WWE, rugby, like the Barbarians. I looked after NFL occasionally, which was really interesting because certainly it hadn't crossed my path at that point. And I looked after family events as well. So they really bundled sport and family events. So Disney on Ice, kind of big festivals, things like that. So a really wide range of stuff, but certainly narrowed towards sport. And then I also dabbled a little bit in West End theatre in a slightly different role as I went through that couple of years with Ticketmaster. So I think what I got out of the UK was a very broad mix across the board, which has certainly helped me in the role that I'm in now.
And it was an exciting time to be in the UK. You also worked on the London 2012 games, and that's something that it is a hot ticket, and that everyone it's effectively lining up online to get those tickets. I remember the fervour in the Sydney 2000 here of trying to get a ticket. Was it the same London 2012, which was a very successful games?
100%. So I was seconded actually to the London 2012 Olympic Committee via Ticketmaster, and very much again was in the ticketing team focused on marketing of tickets, but a very different process. It is, a ballot process as many have experienced before. It is a lot of events across a very short space of time. It is a lot of different sports, and a lot of different sports I'd actually never come across or never watched in my life. So that was really interesting because it also covered both Olympics and Paralympic Games. And certainly I think probably that was the role where I'd say I learned the most in such a short space of time. My role there was to create a database for ticketing. So I, had to create a huge marketing campaign to deliver a list of people that wanted to buy tickets for the Olympic Games, and then use that as a way to communicate to those fans over a period of time in the lead into the games. So getting them excited about the games and obviously ultimately selling them in some tickets into the ballot. So very different process. You have things like the 100-meter final where, you have more than 1 million people registering for 60,000 seats. And so it was just incredibly insane to see just the volume of people applying for the high-profile events. But also, I think what was most rewarding is working hard to kind of fill 80,000 seats for a football game, on a Wednesday. Was really interesting because I think it really challenged us and made us really think through who are the people we are targeting and how can we fill the stadium up based on it being a massive global event.
I've been lucky enough to talk to a bunch of people that work in that major event space, and then they get stuck in it and they go from one event to another event, but they do liken it like a sports MBA in that it's accelerated learning, really intense, the real highs. Did you sort of have that experience? I'm sure you're still in touch with a bunch of people that you work with in that 2012 games.
100%. It is a very, very different world in that kind of tournament structure. I think the biggest thing that's different from, I guess, a normal sporting job is that you only have one chance to get it right. You don't get to do something wrong and then do it again next year. It is once it's done, it's done. And so what you find is a lot of those people, they go on from tournament to tournament to tournament, and these tournaments get better every time because these people have learned the mistakes and learnt the things that can go wrong. But it certainly is. It's a high, can be a highly stressful environment, but a very highly enjoyable environment. But certainly you don't get a second chance to get it right. So you really have to put a lot of effort into to make sure that what you're doing is at the best it possibly can be at.
So the closing ceremony hits, and many of those roles get into wrap-up mode, and everyone moves their own way. Did you see that as an opportunity to look for something else, and that sort of came about with the role of the NFL in the NFL UK?
Yeah, so like any tournament, any major global tournament, usually what happens is once the tournament, so it's a set contract, it's a fixed term, so you kind of know there's an end date to it. For a lot of people, it happens straight after the closing ceremony. For me, I stayed on for a little bit longer to kind of build wrap-up reports and really dig into kind of how we performed over the kind of 3-4 years that we were building up that kind of program. But I was looking. I started looking very early on before the game, started kind of putting my CV out there and starting to see what could be available in the market. And you kind of had to. I also was, thinking maybe this is a really good time to take a personal break and, go travel the world and do all that kind of stuff. So I actually got offered a couple of jobs. They weren't quite right for me. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to book a round the world ticket and, go and explore. And then just as I did that, the NFL knocked on my doorstep and asked me to interview. So I interviewed for the job about 2 days later, got the job the same day, and started the following Monday. So that round the world experience never happened. But obviously I'm very lucky that I've been able to go to a few places with the current NFL job.
And so NFL UK, very much an outpost and one of the first ones where there were games being built. What was What was it like for you working in that role in a digital marketing and marketing role? Because you did have games, you're also trying to build the game in that part of the world.
Yeah, so the role for NFL UK started off, I guess, marketing specific, but for the NFL London game. So at that point, it was 2012. We had one game a year, and they'd been playing games since 2007. So they had a fairly good thing going with this kind of annual event they were building at Wembley Stadium. But 85 to 90,000 seats is still a pretty big number to work to, and I think there was certainly some nervousness about is this sustainable for the future? Like, could this grow? We already had a decent base of people buying the tickets, but what could it look like? So where I really stepped in was to help sell tickets for the games, or help strategize how we would market them and how we would sell them in a fair and kind of equal way. But what we learned is we went on sale, we sold out in 5 minutes, type of thing. And I think what that helped us to realize in building that strategy was that we could probably do more than one game. So in 2013, we expanded to 2 games a year, then in 14 to 3, then I think another 3, another 2, and so on. And to now we've got 4 games a year taking place in the UK, and all of them continue to exceed everyone's expectations in terms of the number of people that apply for tickets. So that's really exciting. But that role also very much expanded into, we don't really need help selling tickets. So what else should we be doing? And our fans, particularly on social media, continue to get really aggravated that they would, go online like everyone else and they would miss out. And, so it became this whole kind of point of, how do you build a strategy that's actually about a sustainable business model that's going to drive fandom no matter what, whether the games existed or not. So that was very much the role I took, and really led into the marketing space more in terms of how do we, build programs and platforms for fans to engage with us outside of the games, and then how do we use that to monetize? So more revenue through, consumer products, through our digital product, Game Pass, things like that. How do you start to build something that fans feel like they're connected to the game, even if they don't live in London?
And it must have been amazing for you as a marketer, because we're always looking for the segmentation and who's turning up. Just a photo at the London games, when you see all the jerseys, like every single jersey's in the stadium. Yes, there are team fans of the teams on the field, but everyone turns up because they want that appetite. So you were looking to both welcome them in, but then also give them an experience if they couldn't go to the games. Yeah,
exactly. And it's a really interesting thing that you bring up. I think certainly from most sports events that I've ever been to, you're either wearing a shirt from either of the 2 teams that are playing, or you're going to get yourself into trouble. So it's a really unique experience over there, where you really do see all 32 teams, and it's not just 32 teams. You see throwback jerseys, and you see kind of like homemade mishmash of jerseys, and just a ton. It's really exciting. You see everything across the board. People are just there to celebrate their fandom of the NFL, and whether they are a fan of that team or not, they kind of almost adopt another team for the day, or just adopt their team and then go for someone on the field. So it's a unique experience, and something that's quite interesting to explain to the teams traveling over from the US, that fans may not be screaming for you on the field to win, but they certainly are there to support you. So that's really fun. But it's very different. And I think ultimately, I think the London Games is kind of built a model that many of the other markets we're now operating in around the world can deliver against as well.
And that festival nature of the games, building activations around the games, the whole week when one of the games comes in, it pretty much takes over the town or takes over the stadium precinct.
Yeah, look, it's about bringing the authentic American product to whatever country we're in, and London being or UK being the country in that instance. But it is about the tailgate experience. Most sports didn't really know what tailgates were. In the US, people are driving up with their pickup trucks and opening it with barbecues and having a huge party in the car park before the game. Some are even not going to the game and are just staying in the car park outside the stadium or game to watch it with friends and other fans, etc. So there is something really, really unique about that. And I think to be able to at least try to replicate as much of that experience as possible without breaking any major laws in the market is certainly what we tried to do. And then I think it's really about what the NFL is about. We are a sport and entertainment brand. We're not just a sport. And so we really lean into youth culture. We lean into music. We lean into food. We lean into gaming. We try and lean into a whole ton of verticals and bring those verticals to life through our major events. And so, a game for us isn't just two teams playing each other on the field. It is so much more than that. And I think certainly we want to bring that kind of Americana into, so people feel like they're having a full day experience as opposed to just a couple of hours.
So 10 years of the NFL in the UK. You moved back here to be the GM of Australia, New Zealand. Why did the NFL identify Australia, New Zealand as a region they wanted to promote the NFL?
Yeah. So we've been trying to look at how do we become a globalized sports property, a global sports property, and that's been something that we've been strategizing over for a number of years. We've run a fan tracker, so we have a global research study that we run, and over the years, whilst it started as a UK tracker and has kind of grown into other markets as we've explored markets, we started to think about what are the next markets for us? Where are we wanting to understand what our fan base looks like? In 2019, we started tracking Australia as a market, just to really have a look, see what was happening. We did know that we were kind of making a small handful of revenue through, some retail sales, product sales, and then obviously had media distribution in the market, and we we're working hard over the years leading into that to make the media distribution of NFL games in the market stronger and stronger. But outside of that, it was very much, we don't know how many fans we have. We don't know, what's going on. We've now got some NFL players from Australia making it into the league. We had, a lot of punters and kickers, some of which are still playing. Jordan Mailata kind of hit the scene in, I think, 2018. So I think with all those things going on by 2019, it was very clear that we needed to start tracking fandom. And what we saw in that research study, and this is self-identified fandom, was that we had this huge spike on a chart like that was growing from 2019 to 2021. And so it was certainly enough of a growth rate at such a fast pace that it made us think, what if we had resources on the ground? What if we had investment in the market? What if we built a strategy that was specific to Australia? How much more and how much bigger could this be? And so, from my perspective, the opportunity to come down to a new market, have a completely clean slate, but know that you have a level of fandom in some way who are engaging with the sport, to be able to take that and think about how do you build something from that? How do you, build more fans, build programs that are specific to the Australian market? It was a pretty exciting proposition to take on. And so, certainly I was jumping at the chance to come down here, and who doesn't want to live in Australia?
I completely agree with that. So you coming back to the market, you would have had familiarity working in the New Zealand market and across the Australian market, but you've been in the UK for a decade. What were some of your thoughts on the Australian, New Zealand sports market when you came back?
Yeah, look, Australia is such a dominant sports market, and for the size of the population of Australia, I certainly think they really punch above their weight, and from a sporting perspective, which is a great thing. And I think there are pretty much, I feel like nearly everyone in Australia is a sports fan in some way, and so it's exciting to walk into a market where you don't necessarily have to convince someone to become a sports fan. They generally already have a really big passion for sport. So that was something that was new. I also loved the fact that whilst obviously there are the bigger sports in the market, the obvious ones, people don't seem to be that exclusive to one sport. They like their main sport is their main sport, but then they also dabble into other sports. So I think unlike other markets around the world where, let's just say it, football kind of controls, it's like soccer football controls, it's a really unique place to come into, because you get to kind of know that, whilst other sports are going to kind of be their main sport that they interact with throughout the season, we very much can come in and they can also engage with us as well. So I've definitely learned that. I'd say the third thing I learned is that kids over here play more than one sport, if not sometimes 5, which is insane if you're a parent. So which is exciting as you walk in and kids are playing different sports every day of the week, and just some of the the coordination and the talent that exists based on the fact that there's so much sport being played at a young age. Again, it creates this really exciting proposition to bring a new sport into the market and engage with that audience.
So you're talking about kids playing sport, and you're right. Mum and Dad's Taxi is taking kids from sport to sport on a weeknight and Saturday and Sunday. So you bring NFL Flag to the mix. Tell us about the NFL Flag program and why that's important and what you're trying to do.
100%. Look, so NFL Flag for us is a really important part of Australia's strategy and obviously a really important part for our strategy globally. I'm a big believer that if you participate in a sport at a young age or at any age, you learn the rules quicker and ultimately you then become a fan. Our sport is not quick and easy to learn the rules, and it's not a basic sport that you can pick up a ball and play. It does have tactic, it does have skill, and it requires thinking for the most part. So NFL Flag is a non-contact version of NFL. 5-on-5 is what we play in sports, but it is mixed gender, so girls and boys playing together. And what we've been allowed to do, so we started off with a pilot in Queensland, just 10 schools, wanted to understand, how would the sport go in the Australian market? What would be the learnings that we would take from that program? So doing it at a pilot level, just to really kind of learn and understand and not assume that we know everything, was how we strategized that. And we quickly learned a lot, but certainly the expansion of that program came from just the level of interest that was coming in organically. So we expanded to 84 schools, all states of Australia in 10 months, which was just insane but really exciting that we could see this momentum growing. The kids that were playing this sport were giving us fantastic feedback. The parents were giving us great feedback, and just saying how much their child had learned from the sport. We were also getting feedback that from parents that had girls particularly that weren't really that into sport or had dropped out of sport and were starting to play NFL Flag and just loved it. So we're coming home asking how they could play it even more. And again, I guess that kind of sentiment really got us kind of going around how do we grow this program even further. It also became an Olympic sport last year, which certainly helped the growth of the program. So we worked really closely in partnership with IFAF, the International Federation of American Football, to work through how we as an organisation could help them to become an Olympic sports property. We both succeeded in that goal, and it will be an Olympic sport in LA 28. What does that mean for Australia? Obviously, it's fantastic for Australia, and we'll work with the local federation here, Gridiron Australia, to certainly support them as much as we can as they establish their Olympic team. But what we really, really care and are passionate about is the fact that we have Brisbane 32 that follows LA 28, and we want to ensure that flag football remains an Olympic sport from through Brisbane and into the future. And at the moment, we aren't guaranteed that. So the work we're putting in right now is really servicing our vision to hopefully, fingers crossed, make flag football continue through the future, so that kids that are playing the sport now, if they're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they actually would have a shot at being in the national team in the future. So it's a big vision. It's an exciting vision, but we're expected to get to over 100,000 kids playing the sport in Australia by the end of this year. And obviously by achieving that, we'll continue the growth from there and try and make it a big participation sport for the market.
It would be a terrific full circle moment for yourself if you were to see some of these kids coming through playing flag now, and then you drive up the road to Brisbane and seeing them on an Olympic field playing NFL flag.
Yeah, it would be unbelievable, I think, for them. I think for their families, and I think for Australia as a whole. I think just to see that kind of full circle opportunity open up, particularly that opportunity for both girls and boys. So I think, we're certainly very excited about what can happen with Olympic sports and what can happen with NFL flag. And, I think we're trying to give, as you well know, Sean, I think we're trying to give kids a big opportunity now. So if they play in their state championship for their school, we do one in every state. The state winners win a chance to come to the Nationals on the Gold Coast. So we fly kids from all over the country up to the Gold Coast, and put on a really big showcase for the national championship, and then the ultimate prize being that the team that wins that national championship goes to the Pro Bowl games in Orlando, Florida, each year to play essentially on the world stage against, this year it was 13 other countries from around the world, and obviously go to the Pro Bowl as well and have a fantastic experience. So, those are the types of experiences that, whilst, the Olympic piece is a really big vision, those kind of tangible experiences right now that, that people may have never got in their lives are really what kind of, I think, makes our program special.
Most definitely. And seeing those kids who might have only learned the game 6 to 12 weeks earlier, playing against kids from Canada and Mexico is amazing, and obviously lives with them. And I've been lucky enough to interview Dino Di Pierdomenico, who does actually have the studies that say, hey, if you play the sport at a young age, the longer you play, the more likely you are going to be a fan. So it becomes a big key part of your fan development as well.
100%, and that's why we love to do it. So we certainly are seeing the fruits of that happen now. Kids that started playing in 2022, we have them turning up to events head to toe in NFL gear, talking about their favourite players, telling us how much they watch it on television, etc. They follow us on social. They do all the things now. So just seeing that and feeling that as you hear that from parents and from kids that are playing, you can really see the impact that it's having.
So that's a player pathway at that grassroots level at kids. But then the other part, and you did sort of touch on Jordan Mailata being identified early through the international pathway to now, playing in a Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles. But another big part of, I guess, player development pathways is the NFL Academy. And it was announced at the NFL draft this year it's going to be open on the Gold Coast. For the people who don't know, tell us what the NFL Academy is.
Yes. So the NFL Academy is a elite high school football program. So it's aimed at young males aged 12 to 18. And essentially it is a program that is essentially like a high school football program. You go in, you're educated full-time like any normal school. You also have to do kind of extracurricular activities to kind of make you college eligible in the US. But the big part of it is that you are being trained in American football full-time by kind of elite level football coaches. So we will essentially open a hub at AU Patterson College in the Gold Coast, opening this September. We had our first recruitment combine this last Saturday, and we have one coming up this weekend in Sydney, and then one in Auckland. And really what we're looking is to scout players to kind of form that academy. They will come and live on the Gold Coast. They will come to AU Patterson College. They will be studying there full-time, and we will be hiring a full elite coaching squad to help train them one-to-one and also in a team environment to try and get them scholarships into Division 1, 2 or 3 colleges in the US to play football. Ultimately, what that means overall is that the more kids we can get playing the sport, tackle football at a young age, the more we can feed the college system, which feeds the draft. Ultimately, the goal is that in the future we might have more international players playing in the NFL. So certainly from my perspective, I'd love to see more kids from the APAC region making it and getting drafted into the NFL. I think Jordan's story is one that's very inspiring. And so I'd love to see more of Jordan happening. But in order to do that and have more success, we need kids to be playing the sport from a younger age and at elite level. So it's a really exciting program. It's been a long time in the making and a lot of work behind the scenes to really develop a strong partnership. It takes a strong partnership for an academy like that. You need education is equally as important as the sport, because without one, you don't get the other. And without both, you don't get a pathway into college. So I think what's interesting about American football as a sport is education is very much tied to how you perform through your career. And so getting that balance right and ensuring we have the right teachers, we have the right coaches in place has been an important step to making that come to life.
And the APAC being the second one, you would have seen the UK Academy Open, seen the success they've had, seen how they've won the program, and effectively you've taken the playbook under your arm as you've come across, and hope to have the same and similar effect of them getting kids into college admissions and under wide positions. At the moment we see a lot of Australians that take their kicking ability from Australian rules or rugby, but the opportunity now is to have more Australians in regular NFL positions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky enough to be kind of around for the start of the Loughborough, or the NFL Academy in the UK, which is now at Loughborough University. And I think seeing how that program was put together certainly helped me in how we visualize what we can do here. But yeah, it's exciting. This is the second academy in the world. And I think to have a second academy and to be able to service a whole nother region of the world is certainly going to help us bring in more talent. We chose this region. Usually I get asked why we've chosen this region, and it is because I think you look at the APAC region, and I certainly think that, yes, we've had a lot of talent convert through college. A lot of it, as you pointed out, in the punting or kicking space. But I think there's a ton of talent in every position on the field for us that has been relatively untapped for the NFL to date. And so, this program is about legitimizing that pathway so that it isn't about being randomly found by a scout or, finding your own pathway into college as some have done. This is a way of saying this is open to everyone. This is inclusive. You can apply for a place in this academy and we will take you on a journey. And the harder you work, obviously, the more successful that you can be.
And you talked about, how it's been set up in the UK, but the importance and the ground that was done to get it set up, but also the importance of the partners that are contributing and participating in the academy. How important is to have them effectively side by side with the NFL in what you're trying to do with the NFL Academy?
Yeah, hugely important. These programs don't become as successful as they should be without partners. I think, as I said, this is a program that's all-encompassing. It has education, and it has the sport component. We're also running a program alongside it called NFL Futures, which essentially allows high school students as well as the wider community to tap into some of the resources and the network that the NFL has. So, with all the partners we have globally, the idea is to, utilize some of those resources, whether in marketing or sponsorship or health or, sports science, whatever that looks like. We want to tap into those resources and use those resources to help upskill and provide experience to not only our athletes in the academy, but the students in the wider school and hopefully in the wider community through recording a lot of those sessions, just to help give people exposure to maybe an industry they didn't know they were interested in, or maybe didn't think about doing in their career. And hopefully by kind of sharing some of those resources, we can help inspire people to take on a new role that maybe they didn't think they would.
So you spent a lot of time and a lot of effort in getting a lot of the pathways right in the kids and getting that pathway right for high school. But a lot of people know the NFL by waking up sometimes at silly parts of the morning in Australia with, to say hello to Scott Hansen, who's running Red Zone at 3 a.m. on a Monday. But it must be also good that your primetime games are at lunchtime as opposed to in the middle of the morning as they were in the UK. What have been your key things to grow the NFL brand and make it more recognisable down under across Australia and New Zealand?
Yeah, so I think it's really a mix. I think we start off by wanting to be present across kind of all different verticals and all kind of all parts of the marketing media mix. It's been about distribution. I think it's thinking really hard and thorough about, we can't control what time the games are on, right? So how do we make the NFL more accessible to the Australian fan? How do we bring them into our world, and how do we give them access, or maybe give them the authentic product with a localized voice? So we're doing a lot in the space to really help amplify content with our media partners. As you'll know, Sean, we do a huge amount in the social media space, and it's a really important part of our strategy in terms of how do we ensure that our fans have a place to go no matter what time they're consuming, and they can kind of catch up and understand what's happening around the league from, not just on the field, but also off the field with the players, their home life, their personalities. So that's been a huge part of it. So we really do a lot in that space. And then I think, we talked about it. It is kind of the participation side. It is how do you get kids playing in order to drive fandom. So we do a lot. I think, but what I probably go back to is how do you lean into the youth audience? How do you kind of be present in everyday life for them? And how do you be innovative? Like, how do you kind of come in and do something unique and different, try things out? And I think the ability to be able to have a market like Australia where they're really receptive to sport, and receptive to entertainment, and usually, for the most part, receptive to American culture. I think it's allowed us to lean in a little bit more and be kind of quite thoughtful and a bit more fun about how we try and engage fans with NFL as a sport and an entertainment property.
I mean, yeah, this is the spot where I get to promote NFL AUNZ or NZ for my American listeners, running those accounts across TikTok and Instagram and X. And we are always looking for that Aussie flavour and allowing Aussies to have a bit of a laugh or really identify, with that content. So it's always, we have the most punting highlights of any international account, but Australians love to get around Mish Wisnowski or Michael Dixon when they do something, and the appetite and the crowd fervour around Tory Taylor when he was drafted as a draft pick at a very high in the draft. Like, Aussies just want to support Aussies, so seeing more of them out on the field and getting distinct shout-outs always helps. Another thing that's helping you in the market is the home activation market, where teams are pushing into Australia, and the Rams and Eagles are in market. What does that mean? Because people probably have seen the Rams and the Eagles doing different things and probably not quite sure. What does that mean, and how does that support you? Yeah,
so the home market teams, or the global market program, is very much a way for teams to engage with markets or countries around the world. We have a whole process in which teams can submit their interest in owning the rights for that territory to promote team fandom for their team. So over the last couple of years, the Eagles and the Rams have both kind of submitted for those rights and had gained the league's approval for that. What it does, it really just amplifies our marketing efforts. It's really fun to have, two teams in the market that are invested in the market, that are putting dollars down, resources down. They're thinking about the audience. They're building a strategy for the Australian market. They really want to grow fans, and they have a passion for it. So for us, it's about working closely with those teams, as well as all other teams, but really leaning into those teams specifically, and helping them to grow. And ultimately, by them investing in the market and us also investing in the market, it's really kind of doubling down what we can do for NFL in the market. So it's exciting, and I hope to see more teams kind of coming on board in the near future. But I think the Eagles and the Rams have both done a fantastic job to date, and we can actually see the correlation between the place they are in the list of fans, the top teams, and we can see them moving up places every single year. So there's been some huge jumps with both of those teams from where they used to be to where they are now. So clearly, marketing works, and they're making a lot of effort, and it's paying off for them.
And that's the thing, and it's not just works for them here, but also globally. So Jordan Mailata announcing a draft pick on the Gold Coast, talking about the academy, giving a shout out to Uncle Roger, as he said on the broadcast. Gives an Aussie flavour, and then also the Rams had the local boys, the Shepmates, have 300,000 Lions fans booing them when they were making fun of Jared Goff, and it was again very much playful. A lot of fun for them, but the Aussie fans see the Shepmates having some fun, and it's another way to connect with new audiences. So it's really fun to see some of those things come about.
Absolutely. And it's been fun to really work with those teams to tap into those unique experiences you just pointed out. So you remember the year before we ran a competition to send two fans, an Eagles fan and a Rams fan, to the draft to announce a live draft pick on stage. And so that's what the Shepmates did as well. And those are very unique experiences. And as we know from dealing with those fans, quite scary. Getting up on stage in front of quite a lot of people, and also then knowing that your face is at that moment on the podium being broadcast across the world. But, if you're a fan, that's just an incredible experience that you'll never, ever forget. So I think being able to work with those clubs to really tap into those amazing, money can't buy experiences for fans and be able to offer them to Aussies is really kind of another thing that's been great for us, and also really sets us apart from other sports properties.
And it is pretty unique. And for those who don't know, the Super Bowl happens on a Monday morning here in Australia. It normally kicks off about 10 o'clock. And there is a large chunk of Australia that either chucks a sickie, which is takes sick leave for the day, or puts their annual leave in quite early. There's not too many officers very productive on those days. And and then you're able to do things like, have a Super Bowl party on the Sydney Harbour, beam back into the broadcast to sort of show Australia it can be part of the NFL ecosystem.
Yeah, we are. We see ourselves as kind of one big group in terms of international. We are a huge part of the overall organisation, and we very much link in with the organisation as well. So, as you kind of pointed out too, being able to have those moments where the US broadcast wants to lean into international markets to see fandom happening around the world, that just really speaks to what we're trying to achieve in terms of being a global sports property. And I think, it's such a fun experience to have, is to be able to showcase, our fans all over the world are pulling, in Australia, are pulling a sick day and drinking beer on a boat in the middle of the harbour, or they might be down in Melbourne celebrating in another big Super Bowl party, or they really are leaning into their fandom, going to bars everywhere on a Monday day. And I think because it's Super Bowl Sunday in the US, that's just such a random thing for a concept for a lot of fans around the world to really get behind. So it's great to be able to showcase that.
Well, thank you, Charlotte, for coming on the podcast. As I said, I want everyone to follow NFLAUNZ because that helps the KPIs with what we're doing from all things social point of view for the NFL. If there's any way for people to reach you, what is the best way for people to reach you?
Me personally, I think probably through LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and certainly happy to answer people if they come to me with any kind of thoughts or ideas that they have. So certainly reach out. It is just charlotte.offord on LinkedIn.
Terrific. Well, we at the Sports Geek closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
Yes. And this is kind of strange, but my first sports event ever was an All Blacks game. So that's just the nature of what I grew up. But I think certainly if I had to speak to the first one I went to in the UK, wasn't a football game. It was actually an NFL game in 2008. Before I didn't know anything about the NFL, and I sat there asking what was going on. So I always find that quite a unique one to talk about. And
you would have been to a lot of different sports events in your time, both pre-NFL, but then since the NFL. Do you have a favourite or a go-to food at a sports event? Go-to food? It's always an American type food, usually a burger. I'm going to say you can't go to a sports event without having a burger. Got to have it. No, you can't. Now, managing a country and a league and working in an international team, what's the first app you open in the morning? The first app I open in the morning is Instagram. Just to give your brain a little break before you get inundated with emails and pings across every platform. No, I was going to say it's funny because I think a lot of people open Instagram sometimes for a break, but for me, actually, it's usually because I want to catch up on what's happened, either kind of overnight in the NFL. Usually my feed is full of NFL stuff or Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce at the moment. So, I think it's all about, for me, it's whilst it's more relaxing to open Instagram than probably other things, other apps. Certainly it's full of NFL, so it does help me from a work perspective as well. It was on my list and I skipped over it, but I should talk about the Taylor Swift effect. I mean, every sport in the world would just love for your sport to be anointed by Taylor Swift. What's it meant for the NFL, both internationally but also in Australia? Yeah, look, I think it's done great things for us as a sports property. I think everyone loves a good love story, I think, and I think certainly that one has come to life by no setup by anyone, but those two. And I think to bring what it's brought for us. I can speak about Australia probably specifically is certainly our fan base became a little bit more female over the last year. So it did bring in a new and young female audience that we perhaps didn't have before. And so really I think about it from a perspective of, we've gained these followers now, we've gained these fans, and our job is to keep those fans engaged and to really educate them and teach them about the sport. So look, Travis Kelce's jersey, I think, increased by about 400% overnight. So, I think we've got Swifties wearing Kelce jerseys everywhere. So how do we engage that audience now to not only love the Chiefs, but really just lean into the NFL, learn the rules and
kind of grow a love and passion for the game like our other fans.
I mean, it was like everything else, but even, when Taylor came down here to do the tour and there was like 3 different morning shows monitoring a jet that might be landing in Sydney when Travis might land, and then there was drones following them around the zoo. Like, no one put it on the strategy board to say, oh, this is what we've got to do. But like, you can't buy that kind of media exposure, can you?
No, you can't. I think it certainly was somewhat of a perfect storm to have, that relationship kind of come together. Him win the Super Bowl, and then she came to Australia pretty much straight afterwards. It was wild to see the amount of news coverage it created, but also really exciting. And it certainly, like I'm not going to shy behind the fact that it certainly helped us from an NFL perspective. And I'm a big supporter of it. I think it's fun, it's engaging, it's different. And certainly, as I said before, it's helped us grow a female audience that we didn't have. And
that's the thing. Like, I've worked with you at the NFL for a couple of years now. My nieces wouldn't have known any NFL teams until this year, and they might quite happy to be answering questions and asking about the NFL, which wouldn't have happened previously. You did mention it before, but I'm going to ask again. Do you have a favourite social media platform?
I can't decide between Instagram or TikTok, if I'm honest. I'm going to say Instagram, because I feel like with TikTok, but I find myself on it and then scrolling for way too long. So if I'm going to be efficient with my time, Instagram's where I'd go.
No, it is very much the case. TikTok can be a drain on you both mentally and hours if you fall into that rabbit hole. Charlotte, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Onwards and upwards for everything in NFL here in Australia and New Zealand, and look forward to catching up soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. I really appreciate it. And for everyone that's listening, make sure, as Sean said, to follow NFL ANZ on Instagram.
Looking to help your digital or sponsorship team? Book in for a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan to help your team level up. Book now at sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain.
Thanks again to Charlotte Offord. You can connect with her on LinkedIn and follow her on Twitter. We'll put all the links to do so in the show notes. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/383. And as I said in the interview there, you can follow NFL AU NZ for all the content that we are helping the NFL with in this market. That's on TikTok, Instagram, X and Threads, so NFL AU NZ, or NZ for my US friends. I just want to close, I guess, with some of the lessons and some of the things I've learned in working with the NFL over the last couple of years and helping grow the fandom via social across Australia and New Zealand. The first one is probably a little bit obvious, but I guess a US market wouldn't know internationally. It's obviously, the NFL is obviously a cultural phenomenon in the US. It has a strong cut through across everything in the North American market, but it is growing internationally. And lucky enough to be working with different international markets to seeing that effect and really being something that really does cut through to mainstream. I think that's been elevated, with Taylor Swift and everything around that. But the Super Bowl remains to be a global phenomenon, and just general news around the NFL and storylines around the NFL seem to be cutting through more internationally, which is great for growth of the game and the sport internationally. One of the things that we've really focused on, and is one of the things that I think has been a key to our success in running the NFL AU accounts, is, and this is where I'll have a shout out to my digital producer, Dylan Parks, in that we have different that we take on board, and I think it's really important to take on board many different voices when you're running digital accounts and social accounts. And I think this applies just as much to me as to other people who have grown up in the digital sports digital world. Many people now in management or C-level positions would have started executing social media and digital platforms as they were first started. But it's really important now to take in those diverse opinions. In Dylan's case, he's a younger, avid NFL fan. Has a completely different perspective to me, who's followed the NFL for a long time, but is more in the casual fan. And so, listening to one of the things that we do at Sports Geek is there's no bad ideas. We're always looking to test things and understand that different people come from different point of view. So really look for broad opinions across your team, because the thing is, the way the algorithms work on all the different platforms, everyone's social media feed is different. There's different trending topics. There's different styles of content that's working for different markets. So it's really important to listen to different voices to understand what those different audiences are doing. So it's one of the things that we really focus on here at Sports Geek. Another thing that we've done in our time, and it's working with clients, but also we've definitely applied it in working with the NFL, is always be prepared, but always be prepared to be agile. And what I mean by that is always making the best laid plans, over scoping what you were trying to do, what you were trying to achieve, what you're trying to capture, whether that be in covering a game remotely, which we do for the most part, or when you're at a live event, whether it be the Pro Bowl, the Super Bowl, the draft. Having those plans in place allow you to be ready to take on board what you need to get and what you need to do. But then also be agile. We all know sports is a chaotic world, and you need to be able to roll with the punches and capture what you can capture when those opportunities arise. So you want to be able to prepare both yourself, your team, your staff to be able to have the freedom to have that agility to tackle something when they see an opportunity. One example I can use is recently the NFL draft. The Shepmates were in Detroit, taking all the sights and sounds of NFL draft. And we also found out that Sketch, who I think it was 5 or 6 weeks earlier, had really popped off in the creator space in the US. And so if you don't know Sketch, what's up, brother? That started with Sketch. And so he was also in Detroit, and the boys and the Shipmates boys were really excited to meet Sketch and potentially, hey, how can we do something with him? And so it was really a combination of how do we connect with Sketch's team? How do we connect with the domestic team that were liaising and managing some influencers? And how do we quickly take that opportunity to get them on in front of a camera, getting to do some stuff, getting some content either side? And that was something that really we couldn't have planned for. We saw the opportunity and we grabbed it with both hands, and we ended up with a really great experience for our influencers in the Shepmates, but also really connected with the NFL AUNZ audience, which is, again, one of the goals that we were talking about with Charlotte. And I guess one thing I will shout out is the support that the NFL social team, led by Colin Huber, give us from an NFL AUNZ point of view, but all the international markets to help grow the game. They do an amazing job in season. They do an amazing job around the tentpoles like draft, like Super Bowl, like Pro Bowl, but also the support that they give all the international markets is amazing. And as much as I would like to, claim credit for a lot of the growth, I mean, we've obviously got to thank Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce for some of the increases in the last 12 months. But I also want to shout out to the NFL domestic team that do a terrific job in supporting what we do. So that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you again to Charlotte for sharing her insights. Check out the show notes for some of the examples that we discussed and some of the things that we've done at NFL AUNZ. And if you or your team is looking to tackle an international market like Australia, please reach out. Happy to share insights on what we've learned over the last couple of years in helping the NFL in this space. Or likewise, if your team needs some assistance in developing high quality social content, happy to review, recommend from our own experiences and also what we've done working with several teams and leagues around the world over the last 15 years. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Do you get Sports Geek news? Sean Callanan analyzes the latest sports business articles for you weekly. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.